Welcome back to the rundown, everybody. A great episode we have on deck for you. Myself, Joe, as well as Brandon is in the Zoom call. We got, like I said, a big time episode. Detroit's rocking. CSAA baseball and softball starting up as well. There's a lot to talk about, so we'll get right into it. But Brandon, before we do that, let me ask you something. How have you been, man? How are you doing?
Oh man, I'm living the life. I mean, it's April in the D around these parts, which is great if you're a Tigers, Wings, or even a Pistons fan at this point. But no, it's been great, and especially with the spring sports trying to get started. Of course, Mother Nature needs a couple extra days apparently to prepare, as we have had pretty much about 35 rainouts over the last 3 days. But
Yeah.
it happens in the month of April, so we're ready to just get this thing kicked off and get the coverage flowing for you guys.
Yeah, we for sure are. As you know, CSA baseball and softball trying to get going at the start of this week, but nothing happened. Last week we were trying to maybe put out or a little bit later of a show so that way we had some scores to go over, but we don't have any because it was rainy and everything got postponed or canceled. But today on the 5th, Big Rapids is going to be in Cadillac. I think that's going to be pretty much a story for a lot of teams. Are starting today. It looks like it's going to happen. Right now I'm looking out the window. It's pretty much a blue sky, bluebird type of day. So hopefully next week we have some scores to go over for you. But I think this one's going to be more of a Detroit sports kind of centered episode. But Brandon, is there anything you want to say about the CSAA before we kind of get into this whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, this year's certainly going to be interesting when you talk about the CSA. Obviously, Big Rapids would be the teams at the top. Everybody's chasing. But I mean, it's going to be a very cool start, I think, to the season. I mean, you got two non-conference games here today on Friday that are going to be very interesting to watch. Obviously, you mentioned Cadillac hosting Big Rapids. So obviously, when you look at the long-term historical magnitude of those two teams playing each other. It's always created some good games. I think you got to imagine that Big Rapids is the favorite, as Cadillac didn't have as strong of a season last year, as they're kind of in a bounce back upward. They're battling in the Big North Conference, but I think it's still going to be a great matchup, and also as well a storybook here in the early part of the season for Reed City and Kingsley, going to battle once again after two battles on the gridiron. Now they're taking it to the diamond to start the season. So that one, obviously, both teams might be a differentiating in skill level, but I mean, the storybook is right there for what should be a classic. But obviously, it's going to be really fun to see. Central Montcalm also going to be hosting Greenville to start the season. So we'll see how the Hornets start off. Obviously, they've had some great success in years past. The consistency's really been the thing that they've been trying to chase. And we wonder if we will see that as well. And then we're going to have some other teams as well going to be battling on Saturday as well. Reed City being one of them, going right back to it, back-to-back days, Friday and Saturday, as they'll be playing against Mason County Central at home as well on Saturday. So, local sports, local baseball and softball kicking it off for us this weekend, as well as girls soccer just getting underway as well. But if you want that coverage, head on over to the West Michigan Sports Show, where I'll get you all the scores and rundown. Haha, get it? From there, over on that program.
Shameless plug. Brandon, way to go for that one. But I think, hey, Kinsley and Reed City might have a little new budding rivalry here across all sports, thanks to the showdowns on the gridiron. So we'll see how that plays out. But it's going to be tough for a lot of these teams because next week conference games are starting. So it just means that these first few weeks of conference games are going to be that much more important to knock the rust off and just who is ready to take on when those games matter the most. But that's going to be it for CSAA. Not much to talk about. But next week, we for sure will, fingers crossed, hope that we have some scores and some games to talk about. Might have some coaches on. Who knows what's going to happen? You never know what you're going to get. But let's get right into it now with Detroit sports. I think we're going to start with the Tigers. Hottest team in baseball right now. We did lose to the Mets last night, which was unfortunate. But, hey, split the doubleheader, especially after the games got postponed. I'm liking where we're at. Is Detroit back, Brandon? That's the real question. That's what everybody's been asking. But I think, dude, Detroit, when all teams are doing pretty solid, it's otherworldly. And I tell you, the atmosphere down there is insane, and it feels good all the way across the state too.
It feels absolutely fantastic. And I mean, especially the 5 game heater to start it up, and basically 7 innings for making it 6-0 with a no hitter, thanks to start Matt Manning. The bullpen has been the story, right? It has been years since we've seen a really consistent top end dominant, but still insane depth within the pen that can get the job done. And we've seen that over 5 games, obviously knocking on wood as there's still, 150 odd some games to go. But you look especially where the hitting has been so far over the last couple of games, it hasn't been great. There's been some pop in the bats when needed, and I think that's certainly a good thing to have so far in the season. But I think the fact that we've still won these games, and I mean, you look at all the scores, if you might have missed them, and you're like, man, 1 run games. Exactly. They've been 1 run games and they've been low scoring games. The bats have not been necessarily getting as many hits and many runs across, but the defense has played well and the pitching staff has really started off strong. And I think that's certainly a good thing to note because last year we had so many injuries early part of the season. Now that they're using a lot of arms out of the pen, we're going to need to see a couple of those starters start to go a little bit later in games so we can save some of those bullpen arms. But right now, it's a good problem to have thinking about how you can improve with a 5-1 record through your first 6, and now you're going to get to go back to Comerica. So, pretty solid start to the season, and I'm sure they're happy with 5 wins in their first 6 games.
Yeah, absolutely. Right now, as we're filming this, is 10:13 on Friday. I think first pitch is scheduled for like 1:10 p.m., somewhere around that time. But we're definitely excited for it. I think too, like you said though, Brand, the bats need to kind of get up and going a little bit more. Your pitching staff can only take you so far because I mean we've seen it already. It's got some depth, but sometimes you might have a little bit of hiccup where the bats need to start picking up, which I think they will. I mean, we saw that last year was a little bit of a slow start, but I mean, Torque hit what, 28 bombs or something like that. And you also see Riley Green getting some pop in the bat early with that home run yesterday too. So I think we're going to be pretty solid. And also look at it, Gio Urshela and Carson Kelly, or excuse me, Zach McKinstry, the other, are both over 300 batting average. So a little bit slow start, but we saw that last year. So I don't really think there's too much to worry about, but with opening day happening in Detroit, I think that's going to be a little bit more of a boost for these bats, and we'll see how it goes. Was Javi Baez taken out last game? Because I don't think he played, did he?
No, he was out of the lineup. Zach McKinstry started, and he's certainly been a great bat for us. I mean, we saw him make a couple really nice plays so far in the spring and as well to start this season. But I think, especially when you look at the depth, obviously adding Gio Urshela has been a huge need because he hasn't had necessarily the most, what would you say? He hasn't necessarily had the best hitting start to the season so far, but he's been able to get the ball in play in key moments. He had a couple RBIs in one of those wins a couple days ago, and I think that's a really big need for this team because you have a lot of power bats, right? You have Riley Green, obviously adding Mark Canha really brings a lot of pop into the lineup, as well as Torque. When he can unload and make big contact, that thing is leaving the yard quick, fast, in a hurry. But I think when you look at the rest of the lineup, you got a lot of good contact hitters that put the ball in play, and I think that's a key part of it. Just couldn't get it out of the infield or get it away from the outfielders so far in the last couple of games. But obviously, it's early in the season. Getting back to Detroit, back onto home soil, might be helping their cause. And I think the pitching staff as well, I did look it up, best in the MLB so far in batting average against. 162 opposing hitters are against Detroit Tiger Arms this year. That's a really nice stat to hang your hat on if you're that pitching coaching staff right now in Detroit.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Scooball has to start tonight, and then Maeda is going to make his Tigers debut tomorrow on Saturday, same time for first pitch as well. I'll definitely be watching that because that's a pretty highly anticipated one that a lot of people have been looking forward to with that offseason signing. I have been as well, but I think this pitching staff is going to be one of the main reasons why we make some noise in the AL Central. I mean, what we were projected third finished, I think, right now, or third finish at the start of the season, but maybe this kind of hot start is going to ruffle some feathers and switch up a lot of people's projection boards for this upcoming time. But so like I said, Scooball starting it up. Hopefully the AL Cy Young fourth favorite is going to do pretty well. We'll see how it goes, but definitely wish I could have gone to this game. I wish that the schedule was kind of lined up so that we could both go to this game too, because we also got a Red Wings game tonight too that we're gonna be talking. Because that'd be sick to go kind of a double up type deal.
Yeah, it would be sweet. And I heard Dan Dickerson on the broadcast yesterday. You said Scooble. This might be the first time in I don't know how many years we've had a pitcher not only start opening day of Major League Baseball on the road, but also Tigers opener at Comerica Park, as Scooble's going to get the ball for both games. I don't know the last time a Tigers pitcher has done that. And that's
I don't
super
think
cool
ever.
just to think about it. Yeah, I don't know if it's actually, I think Dan said it might have been done way back in the 70s or 80s when they had different schedules. But I mean, just the fact of it, like, this is a really unique opportunity. And especially when you consider the arms that the Tigers have really built up. It is because, I mean, we can talk about how great Matt Manning was. I mean, he was the player of the game in that second game, obviously, threw perfect through those 5 2/3 he went through. Obviously, Mets finally got the bats going in the last 2 innings, and that's really all you can say about that game, losing 2-1. Because other than those 2 innings, they were shut down, and it was very noticeable in that game. You look at the staff. I mean, obviously Maeda has been a really nice add for us, veteran presence. Obviously, Skubal, when healthy, 100%. Under a full season, we need to see what he can do, and especially being nominated in this Cy Young watch list, just be able to speak of it for itself. And then you got a lot of these guys as well, Joey Wentz, Alex Faedo, these guys that have been starters in the past, but now that have kind of transitioned into utility roles into the bullpen. And I think that really brings a lot because you saw a lot of these guys created, they have some filthy stuff, right? Swing and miss, swing and miss. They are absolutely phenomenal at getting batters to miss the baseball, but they have just not necessarily had the longevity. This transition now to put them into the pen where they're not necessarily worried about 6, 7 innings of work, but having the best quality in those 2 or 3 innings. And a lot of those transitions have been working very well. Chris Fetter's done a great job, it seems like, so far. Obviously, we'll be crossing our fingers. Hopefully everybody stays healthy. But especially with that, I mean, it takes a lot of pressure off of that lineup when you're at the plate, when you know the pitching staff has been absolutely lights out. But can't rely on that for 162 games. So they're going to have to figure it out. Hopefully home field advantage, especially not putting a knock against this team, but it's very favorable and a really nice opportunity to get the bats going against a team that has struggled, especially on the mound over the last couple of years, and especially are in kind of rebuild mode. Not sure what's going on in Oakland, but they're coming over here. So that's a very favorable matchup for us, you would want to say, because frankly, we don't know what Oakland's doing right now.
Yeah, and Oakland just made an announcement too that they are moving to Sacramento for 2 years during the little changeover as they're moving to Vegas. I think in 2028 is the first year. A lot of their fans not happy about that. I'm not happy about that either. I think Mr. Fisher, their owner, is a scumbag for it, but I think that's a conversation for another day. He's also, yeah, we'll leave that be. Well, that'll be another conversation for another day because that's going to get Joe a little bit too animated here. But I think that's going to be it for Tigers Talk. Looking forward to it. I think this is a very exciting start to the season. We'll go to the Red Wings, who are in a little bit of a playoff hunt right now. They are,
Just a little bit.
I'll say right now, I'm a little nervous, especially with tonight being the Rangers coming to town, one of the best teams in the NHL. Every win counts, and especially being a few points behind and 2 places behind in that wild card race. It's gonna be a rough one to have to win out for the rest of the season with the teams that we have to play. But that does not mean I am not hopeful because we still got a team that's ready to play and has something to play as well. Because New York is a little bit more on the safe side when it comes to the playoff push. But Red Wings, when your back is pushed against the wall and you don't have anything to lose, it's really tough to beat a team like that.
It is, and I think especially, I mean, over that 4 game skid that we saw the Wings playing, they were just kind of, it was there, but it wasn't there. I mean, kind of similar to the losing streak prior, where we were at the 6 or 7 game mark, and it was really kind of like the Wings were there, but they weren't necessarily there. Obviously, the last 4 games, not having Larkin was probably the biggest reason why, and I think you could probably make the clear case argument that it was because Dylan Larkin was not in the lineup, and it's like, well, it's one guy, you obviously got 4 other lines that can take care of it, 3 other defenseman lines, but at the end of the day, it's the chemistry that means a lot, especially with a lot of these lines when you have to change things up, insert and move guys around. It can obviously create a change that you might not necessarily be used to. And I think especially the fact of it is, I mean, being on the road for all 4 of those games didn't help the case either, right? At Nashville, a team that plays very well at home compared to on the road. You got Carolina, who's been a good club. They've been really a Stanley Cup contender the last couple of years. You have Florida, who's been pretty much red hot. The whole state of Florida over the last couple of years in hockey has really taken over. It seems like it's been incredible. It's been crazy to see that. And then obviously that really close loss in overtime to Washington, where we just had one puck bounce the wrong way. But I think you still, now when you see Dylan Larkin come back, you obviously Patrick Kane really really living up to the Showtime mentality over the last couple of games where he's been scoring at an elite level. I think it just shows you that this top line and these two top lines offensively can take you everywhere. Defensively, as long as these guys stay consistent, keep guys marked, because a couple of the times, especially on the penalty kill, we've kind of really been out of position, and that's put us at a bad advantage, and opponents have been scoring on us at a really high level compared to our seasonal statistic. But I think I think we're going to see a really fun race here down the road. Obviously, Islanders are in this mix. The Capitals are in this mix. We've been talking about the Flyers, how they've been kind of bouncing around as well. So, I mean, really, when you're looking at this conference, I think it's going to be really interesting to watch, because obviously the Wings are at a little bit of a disadvantage, obviously being one game ahead of some of these teams. So obviously we have one less game to gain points back, but the opponents down the stretch as well have tough tests. Not saying Detroit, obviously we got the Rangers tonight, which is going to be a tough one. Then you're going to have to go and play the Capitals again at home this time. So, and then we're going to have to go back to Pittsburgh. So I'm not saying our road is any easier, but the truest team that is playoff ready out of these four teams, because they all have very tough schedules, I think it's going to really show once we have a winner into that final wild card spot. It's, hey, this team earned it. They're ready for playoff hockey. They've been playing some tough teams on the road, and they got it done down the stretch. That's exactly what you're looking for when you're looking at the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with Lions starting tonight, he's been a guy who's had the bright spots, but also some low spots too. Igor Shesterkin is unconfirmed, but it looks like he's going to be the starter in that for the Rangers too, which is gonna kind of be a tough one because he is one of the best goalies in the NHL. But I think this team, especially at home, is one of the toughest teams to beat. It's not easy to come into Detroit, especially with the barn that's going to be rocking with playoff implications, and especially just the aura in Detroit today with the opening day for the Tigers. I think the players are going to be able to rally behind that and play very, very well. It's a little bit of I mean, we've had, 4 or 5 days off now, so at least they got some time to kind of recuperate a little bit. They haven't played since the start of this week. I think it's going to be all right. We got New York, then Buffalo, Washington, first of a 3-game home series. It's going to be a much needed. Players are going to be with their families too, which is going to be big time. So I think we're going to be A-okay when it comes to this homestand. But like I said, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Lalonde has been telling the guys that, and he's especially been talking to the media too, that we're going to be fighting as hard as possible. This team wasn't expected to make the playoffs. Keep that in mind at the start of the season and even the middle of the season too. But once we signed that guy Kane, that's kind of when this whole thing started. So if we don't make it this year, don't be too mad. Don't beat yourself up too much about it. I'll be a little bit sad, but I think next year is going to be perfect. But I don't want to talk about next year too much because I'm still focused on this playoff push that we're trying to build up. But still, looking forward to it. Detroit is so back. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot wait for it. Brandon, do you have we'll do like a dark horse prediction maybe for the Tigers or the Red Wings? Anything that's kind of maybe out of nowhere, out of left field prediction, or kind of an empty net kind of desperation choice of what you think is going to happen?
Oh man, that's tough. It's tough because I don't want to put a goal cap on this New York Detroit game tonight between the Wings and the Rangers, because I think this is going to be such an interesting game. And I believe the last time these two teams met, as I'm scrolling up, I believe they played earlier on this year in what was a high scoring affair. I could be wrong though. I might be thinking of another team, but I think it's going to be very interesting. 3-2. Actually, I was thinking of another game. So it was a low
Way
scoring
back in
game.
November.
Yeah, it was all the way back in November when they played. I think the game I was thinking of was all the way back. Or no, they did play on November. That was 5-3. Okay, that was the one I remembered, and
Yeah,
that
they
was
played 2 games in November, but they haven't played them since.
yeah. So the game at the Rangers was a high scoring game, 5-3. So I think when you look at that in full grand scheme, you look at the last couple of games, there's been a lot of goals being not only susceptible to Detroit goaltenders, but we've also been scoring at a much better level, not necessarily to the level we saw on our winning streak a couple weeks ago, but I think we could really see a game where the Red Wings could score 5 goals. I think is very realistic. And I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to be completely off the momentum from Tampa Bay, but the fact that you just mentioned it, Joe, I mean, 4 days off for this team is a much greater number than other teams because of the fact that we've had guys banged up, obviously like Larkin. Obviously, we've had some other guys. Perron's been banged up as well in the lineup. Robbie Fabry has taken some shots as well. So you get these guys a lot of that rest, and especially after a good game like they played in Tampa, I think is really huge for this team. I think that You want a Hail Mary? I think that people that buy both tickets in Detroit today will see two wins. And may I be bold enough to say, big wins. I think that the Tigers have the ability, and frankly, I think a lot of people would agree with me that this really isn't out in left field that much, that the Tigers could win this game by 6 runs. I think it is a very real
I agree.
possibility for how bad the Athletics offense has been. Obviously, I'm knocking on wood under the table right now. But not only that, you can book this on an extra leg of a parlay. Wings win by 2 goals over the Rangers, which you're like, yep, I know. There it is right there, Joe. I saw it. I knew it was coming. They win by 2 goals, 4-2. I could
I
see
would
that
love
being the
that.
case.
I don't know if it's gonna happen, but I would love that.
I mean, if it's a time, right? It's the time is now. Detroit's going to be bumping. This
The
fan
only
base today is going to be the greatest that we've seen all of this part of the new year. That's what it's going to be.
yeah,
Everybody's going to be downtown in Comerica. They're going to stay after a Tigers win against the A's, and they're going to go check out the Red Wings. And that place is going to be bumping so much. It gets the boys back, the confidence going in from Tampa Bay. Call me a homer, but I'm throwing it all in. There you go. Win by 2 over the Rangers, 6 over the Athletics. Everybody in Motown is going to be absolutely ecstatic here on this Friday. It's going to
big
happen.
time. The only thing standing in their way is this little thing right here. Remove the
Yes.
patch.
Hey,
Still,
don't
still
worry.
campaigning for that.
I
I
put my hat back home, so it's not in my house right now. So that fact, there's no aura of bad juju in this room when I'm watching the games. It's all the way back home, safe and sound. So hopefully, ever since that move, they've started winning. So the hat might be just the case. And since it's back home, hey, we're on the track, man. We're going to be
yeah,
on the right track.
you're rolling at this point. I think my prediction, I'll say my extra innings prediction because it's gonna go only for the Tigers because the Red Wings, I don't even want to worry about that right now because right now, well, I forgot to mention this too. Red Wings right now are sitting fourth in the wild card. They're at 82 points. Tampa has it pretty much locked up for one of their spots, so it's a fight between the Islanders, the Capitals, and the Red Wings. Even Pittsburgh could get in there too if each team falls out. So there's it's a tough situation. Islanders have 83 points. We have 82. Capitals have 82, and then Pittsburgh has 81. So we're not out of the rough stuff yet. But anyways, back to my prediction. I think you can see Torkelson hitting 30 home runs this year. I think he's gonna get to that point. He hit what 28 last year. I think he's gonna find a little bit of a stride today. I think you might see his first home run of the year today. Athletics have been a little bit struggling on the pitching side as well. So I think you're gonna see Torque hit his first Torque bomb of the year in front of the home crowd in the first home game of the year. Might as well, too. New scoreboard. Everybody's vibing, having a good time. People are going to be chilling on Tin Roof watching the game from the bar across the street. It's going to be a blast. I am so excited for this. Tigers baseball. I don't know if you've seen the picture, but Jason Benetti drinking that milkshake. That is me right now. That milkshake is Tigers baseball. I am just so fully into it this season. I'm excited. And, dude, you can tell Detroit is back. All right. And the vibes are very high. So I think we're going to see 2 wins tonight with Brandon. I'm excited. I don't know how many more times I can say that word, but I think we got to close this thing out. Any final words for the people, Brandon?
Hey, the people came and the people got what they were looking for. At least we hope. If not, give us comments as well on this episode, and
If
we will
not, come
take
back
those into
next
mind.
week. We'll probably hit it.
Probably, yeah. So it's gonna be fun. I mean, especially with what we got here on the network, bringing in the Tigers and the Wings has really rejuvenated me, Joe. I don't know how you feel, but I'm loving this. This is back to our good old days, freshman year of college when we were doing this, and it's super exciting because it just brings the whole energy of our network here all to the fans around here. Because I mean, we go to Detroit. Obviously, me and Joe have taken trips down to games, and we've obviously met with the people down there. But you talk about the people here in Big Rapids that are Wings fans, Tiger fans that we run into. I mean, people are following these two teams from all over the mitten and even beyond. So the excitement that we have here over this small network is just, a drop in the bucket compared to what we've got statewide and especially down in the 313. So it's going to be really fun. I'm looking forward to it. And obviously to pair with that, we got local high school sports coming back. I mean, it's just going to be a fun series of the rundown this spring. We can't wait to bring it to you.
Absolutely. Find it here. Next week, we're probably going to, I think, probably a Thursday or Friday show again, just so that way we can have a lot of CSAA scores to go over, as well as there's going to be a few games for the Tigers and the Red Wings to talk about that are going throughout the week as well. So I think we're going to stick to this Friday post for next week. We'll let you know we'll get kind of more of a set down and locked in schedule for posting for this kind of new format. But that's going to be it for this episode of the Rundown. Thanks for watching. Brandon, thanks for joining me. It's always a blast. We'll be seeing you guys next week. Go Tigers, go Red Wings, and go your respective CSAA teams. We'll be seeing you next week.